Lab Science Podcast, episode 25, your boy Professor Sense. I hope you've been doing well. Hope you had a productive week. We've been talking a lot about mixing engineering tips, so I wanted to switch things back to my producers and my songwriters and give you a way to start thinking about finishing songs and pitching song ideas, pitching beat ideas, and having sounds that will help you place songs with specific artists. So if you talk to any trending producer, any producer with a lot of placements, you'll often hear them say they made a song with this artist in mind. You know, I made a beat, I had French Montana in mind. I made a beat, I had Jay-Z in mind. And whether or not they actually place those beats with French or Jay or the artist in mind, it's a consistent starting point. And I think that's a really important concept to focus on, even if you're an up-and-coming producer that will never be able to, or I shouldn't say never, that currently won't be able to place a beat with some of these bigger artists. If you start to think about your production with the target in mind, it allows you to then take the steps in your sound design and your creative process to make it easier to make beats for that artist. And I think that's a really good way of, changing from being just a beat maker to a song producer and to a writer. So something I like to do every couple of weeks really is take about 5 artists or so. I'll start a playlist of 5 artists that I really like. And this playlist will have songs that I'm really familiar with, that I enjoy the sound around, that I really want to approach or explore. And I'll take a few days and listen to these songs, and I keep a pad and paper, or I'll keep the notes app open on my phone. And I do really focused listening of the records and write down the things that I like about the records with a real focus on what the sounds are. So let's use, I guess we can use like the N.E.R.D Rihanna Lemon record for an example, right?
Bouncing around, bouncing around, bouncing, bouncing around, bouncing around, bouncing. Hate supplements are found right in their couches. Bouncing around, bouncing around, bouncing. Shout out to them people.
I'd have this song on a playlist, and for a few days I'd listen to it, and I'd write down things like the tempo. I'd write down the fact that it uses a distorted sub bass that has a lot of top end energy.
Shout out to them people.
And it does a lot of moving. It has what sounds like an 808 or a 909 kind of drum kit on it.
Bouncing around, bouncing around.
There's a lot of really short, plucky sounds that carry the melody around.
Bouncing around, bouncing around, bouncing. Hate supplements are found right in their couches.
And those go through a reverb. All of these things are not things you're thinking about, hopefully, when you're listening to a song in the club and dancing. But it's stuff that you should be thinking about if you're doing focused listening of a record. So I'm writing all these things down. 808 kit, 909 kit, distorted 808 sounds, distorted bass line with the high register, plucky synth sounds, plucky melodic sounds. These are all characteristics of sounds that I can now remove out of this specific record and try to implement into new records. Okay. Now, it would be easy enough for me to then just take those notes and start a beat. But another part of this process that I think is really important that I do, I spend a few days after I have a notepad with a couple of artists and a couple of descriptions, and I collect sounds, or I make sounds and presets and riffs and melody ideas and loops without completing full beats that are based around the notes that I made. So again, in our case of this N.E.R.D Lemon record, I would spend a couple of days making new 808 bass drum kits that have, different types of distorted bass lines on them, different types of hard hitting snares. And I maybe would take a few different software synthesizers and make different plucky melodic sounds that can be my top melody. And most importantly in this process, I'll do this for all of the notes that I have. So I'm doing this for a couple of songs. I won't start any new beats in this time. I'll use this as a way to refresh my palette, so to speak. All that I'm working on in terms of creating new things are sound libraries around these notes. So if I'm getting the itch to make a beat, I'll work on some more of this 808 kit. I'll work on some more of those plucky synth leads. And it gives you a few days to really appreciate the beat making process. And I think that's important for staying inspired. If you're itching itching to work on something aside from this and you're going crazy, edit a beat that you already have, finish something that you already have, but don't start anything new while you're collecting these sounds. After about a week or so, You can then reward your creative self for that hard work, for that patience. Then you can block out some time, put your phone away, hit airplane mode, and take all of the samples you made when we were taking that time off, take all those riffs, those loops, and start making beats with those artists in mind. So now I can take these crazy 808 kits that I made, these plucky synth sounds that I made, and make a new Lemon, you know, and I think that's that separation of the different parts of your brain when it comes down to being creative keeps you inspired. It keeps you pushing forward. And furthermore, it's going to keep your library progressing. And that's important for production. The sounds change every couple of weeks. And if you don't update your sounds, if you don't take some time and look at the landscape and say, hey, what do I like? Let me get in tune and then bring that into my world. If you're trying to place music, it limits the artists that you can work with. A lot of artists are going to want a current sound. And so if you're completely detached from what's going on in the landscape, it's going to be really hard to know what they've been listening to. Do this process regularly. Again, I try to do it every couple of weeks. And it'll make you a faster producer and make you much better at getting to an intended sound without any fluff. Professor Sense, this was a quick one, but I think it's a very important one. Would love to hear what records you guys are trying to break down, and we'll continue to talk about some topics that'll help us make 2018 the most productive one for you yet. Until next time, hit labsciencepodcast.com. If you're listening on iTunes, man, please do me the solid. Shoot us a review, shoot us a rating on iTunes. It helps us go a long way in terms of visibility. If you're on SoundCloud, go ahead and repost if you can. And the website is labsciencepodcast.com. If you need any additional info, hit me there. Much love. Peace.